Hi guys, this is Antandra, and today I'm going to show you how to make a Reese bass in Serum. So if you don't know, the Reese bass originally was created by Kevin Sanderson, aka Reese, who released a track called Just Want Another Chance, and that song, if you listen to it, has a specific bass sound.
I just want another chance to prove myself to you, girl.
That you can hear replicated throughout drum and bass and different variations all over the place. So the original sound was made on a Casio CZ5000. We're going to be using Serum. Casio CZ5000 was a digital synth that was a phase distortion synth. So we're not going to do the exact technique used because it's hard to replicate. Every synth has a unique character, but we can strive for a similar tonality, a similar sound in Serum. So I've been messing with this for a while. There's different ways to go about it, but basically the basis of the sound has to do with that phase distortion. And so what we're going to do is play with the phase of the sound. So I just have the init patch here, and I have a little pattern programmed in that's similar to the pattern in the original track, Just Want Another Chance. And that's just the sawtooth wave initial patch. So now I'm going to take this LFO and drag it here onto this warp mode section. It's also basically modulating the phase in different ways, so that's the kind of thing we want to play around with to get this type of sound. So what I'm going to choose is this remap 1 mode, and then I can go in here and change the type of mapping. So by default it's going to sound like this. So no real change yet because it's just a linear slope going up. But if I go here and choose a preset and I say sine wave, now we're going to hear something different. So that's extreme. What we want to do now is turn down the modulation amount. So I'm just going to click and drag down here. And let's go ahead and bring it down even more, raise it up a tiny bit, a little bit more up. So now let's close that. And what I'm going to do is map the note to the LFO rate. I'm going to turn off BPM sync and anchor, and let's just hear that. So now I'm going to add another voice of unison, just so we have 2. Turn down the detune a little bit. I'm also going to turn down this range and push this up a bit. Let's turn it down. So that's kind of cool, and you can also turn on like a sub frequency here. And one thing about the original sound is it was really like filtered down. It wasn't really intense. I mean, there's a lot of variations on the Reese bass that get more higher harmonics integrated into it. And that starts to go into more like a neuro bass territory, which a lot of the neuro basses, which I consider like neuro drum and bass, neuro like glitch hop came later and stuff, But like Nero basses and drum and bass and jungle definitely were inspired by the Reese, seeing as how Kevin Sanderson was one of the originators, pioneers of techno, and techno kind of led to the whole drum and bass movement. So now let's go ahead and filter it down to create kind of that muted tone of the original Reese if you listen to the track. So that's getting closer. Now I can boost the resonance a bit because the original Casio CZ5000 had a lot of resonant waves, and I don't know the exact waves that he chose, but there's a limited number of options, and you could kind of choose multiple and blend between them and get different kind of results, and some of them were resonant waves. And so let's just boost up that resonance a bit. I can give it a little bit of distortion in this fat knob. So that's really close to the sound we're going for. Now we could go over here to the effects tab and kind of play with the compression. Maybe add the distortion from like the tube distortion or something. I also like to turn on this key follow here. Let's try a different distortion. So there's also this sine fold. That's pretty cool. It's good to be subtle, but if you want to go into the Nero territory, you can definitely get more extreme with this. But if you're trying to emulate the old school Kevin Sanderson version, then it's more muted, it's more subtle. You can also like try different waveforms. So if I went in here into edit mode, I could add a different waveform. And let's go ahead and choose like a analog saw, and maybe add another one. And let's choose a organish, and then let's go back there and just select these, holding shift and clicking, and I can do the morph between and use spectral morph. And now you can see I have a whole wavetable here I can shift between. So this will affect the wave shape, can have some interesting effects to it. Let's add a bit of modulation to this from LFO2. From here, it's just a matter of fine-tuning to taste. I could add another oscillator here if I want. I could run it through the filter. I could select a different shape here. modulate this. Another nice one to play with this is asymmetry. Let's go back to LFO1 and drag that on here. You can also play with this phase knob on either oscillator and the randomness. So you can turn down the randomness of the phase and just move the phase around manually. Or automate it like so. When you're playing around with the phase, it can affect the pitch of the sample, so just be aware of that. But it can create some nice effects, and part of the charm of the sound is the detuned nature of it. You could also try like different waveforms, like a sawtooth wave. Maybe it's more like a triangle hybrid. Maybe slow it down a little on the LFO. Play with the amount of voices. It's a fine line with the resonance. Like, you want it to be high resonance, but you also, the more resonance you give it, the more it cuts off the high frequencies and boosts certain frequencies. So you just kind of want to balance it to where it feels right. Could also try playing around with the chorus or phaser, or maybe this hyperdimension. You have to be careful though, because it can lose the sound. I'm going to take the chorus off. main key is the phase distortion or phase modulation, I think. So, and keeping that low pass filter down. You could try different filter types. But if you're trying to emulate that original sound, you're definitely going to want like some kind of low pass. It's pretty closed on the sound because there's kind of like a muffled, deep sound, rumbly, but also has like a nice bite to it. So yeah, it's a fine balance. There's also in the global section different settings. So if you wanted to say not have it affect the pitch, you could turn that down and just have it affect the width of the sound. So that sounds like this. As opposed to if I have the pitch on. Pitch makes it sound pretty fat though, so we'll leave that on. You can turn down the width too. It sounds like this. This just changes for the unison mode, you know. So on this oscillator here, we have two different versions of the waveform in unison, and so this is just deciding if they're going to be wide or change the pitch or both. And you can do other stuff like the warp position or the wavetable position and different stacking options. So Serum is very versatile for creating a sound like this. You can also turn on mono and legato in the voicing modes and different combinations of that. Play around with this always toggle. This will always pitch bend. If you turn this up, it changes the rate that it pitch bends at. So if you turn that off, it will only pitch bend when you overlap notes when legato is on. So here's just with the first oscillator again. And here's just the second oscillator. And here's both together. You could also try different shapes here for the sub. You could run that through the filter by turning this on. Try a triangle. And I encourage you to get in here and mess around with the phase distortion. Instead of just having a preset of like a sine wave, you could draw something. Notice how different sounds or different phases will get quieter or louder, and that's just due to phase cancellation. So you just have to find the sweet spot no matter what waves you're combining. Hard to say what the original sound was comprised of, but you can get a lot of different similar emulations or implementations going. So now let's go ahead and make something more simple. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. But I'm going to go ahead and make a new sound. So let's go here, init patch, or init preset. And often what people do is just turn up the unison right here, and that creates a phasing effect similar to the Reese bass. And then you can just turn on the filter. So because these are detuned, they're interacting in a phasey way, which creates a similar effect. That's changing the detune amount. But yeah, it can be as simple or as complicated as you want. It's just a matter of your preference. So let's go ahead and try a different one using this asymmetry. Let's turn on another oscillator. Run that through the filter. Just wanted a little more sub, so let's bring that down. Let's go ahead and play that with the part again. Raise those both up an octave. You could also try a pulse wave. So if I go here to analog, choose basic shapes, I can go through here. So it's like a pulse width modulation version. Could drag this note on here to the LFO rate again and turn off BPM. And here's just with the first oscillator. Let's bring that down. Turn that filter follow back on. And we could also do that with the sawtooth wave. Let's try some drive and fat. Not too much, we don't want to clip the master. You could turn down the random phase here and adjust this manually. We could even move that with the LFO if we want. Of course, it bends the pitch like I explained earlier. But if we bring it down, creates a nice effect there. So yeah, there's a lot of ways of going about this, and no matter what synth you're using, you can probably create quite similar sounds, maybe using different techniques, but it's more about the harmonics and the resulting sound than the techniques used to produce them. So I hope you learned something in this tutorial, and until next time, I'm Antandra. Thanks. Have a wonderful day.